In our meeting in July, essentially I indicated that what I needed to do, or what we all really needed to do at this point, was to take a look at all of the various elements and parts of this initiative that have been suggested or approved or brought forward for consideration. My main concern was that we were somewhat making tacit agreements and obligations without necessarily looking first at the total project and what it entailed. From a timing perspective, we are now in late August, and as you know, we actually begin preparation of the budget in late September, early October. And essentially what we're facing is a situation where we have some informal agreements to proceed on certain things, but in order for us to understand what you would like us to proceed to, how you would like us to proceed in terms of moving ahead, and what types of commitments you would like to make in terms of the not just the 2017 budget, but also the 2018 operating budget. We thought it was important at this time to look at everything overall and basically get feedback from you and guidance from you, both for both myself and for Susan, to determine how you view this as impacting on the budget.
So there's two things that the mayor and council kind of made a commitment to in the last year's budget process. We set aside money for a bus, which is in capital.
Correct.
And we set aside money for a part-time senior coordinator,
which is in operation.
So why don't you take those one at a time and tell us where we are on both of those.
Okay. If you'll go to the second page where it says Senior Friendly Community Overview. Okay, we've given you a breakdown of the various elements. We begin with the Senior Services Advisory Committee, which is the group, as you know, that is meeting on a monthly basis and has come up with many of the suggestions that are currently under consideration. So our chair, I believe I saw Gloria, our chair is Gloria Lane, and the council liaison is Councilman Bash. The group does meet regularly and consistently on the second Monday of each month here in Borough Hall. The first activity that we talked about, activity number 1, was social services support. And that was what we planned and hoped to achieve through hiring a senior community service coordinator. As the mayor indicated, that position is currently in the budget for a part of the year. It's anticipated to be a part-time position, 20 hours per week. The activity really did not have a home, and I guess realistically it makes most sense for it to be under the oversight of the Department of Administration. The activity also did not have a physical location, and we do have an office in the rear of Borough Hall that we're proposing could be the physical location for the community services coordinator. In terms of where we are with it, the job description has been prepared, an employment ad has been prepared, there is a hiring schedule that has been prepared. We'll discuss that further in the closed session following the public meeting. But essentially what we'll be looking at right now is the timing for that hiring, and we have worked out something. Activity number 2 is the Senior Transportation Initiative. Here again, we've talked about I guess some type of coordination between the transportation service and the senior center director, or the Tenafly Senior Center. So that is presently where it's envisioned that this program would be housed. So I've still listed it as proposed because it hasn't been confirmed as yet. We do currently have draft policies for the transportation program. The things that we don't have because the policies kind of anticipated, and no one has disputed that to this point, that while we are looking to provide rides on demand and by scheduled appointments, there will be downtime. So the policy basically envisions that there will be times that the bus is also doing loops around the overall community and making stops at key locations like the library and, you know, downtown, but none of that has been defined as yet. So that is still pending. Our service area has been defined, and those are the communities that are listed. The vehicle acquisition, as we pointed out, has been approved, and we do have funds in the capital budget for that activity. The timing is really what we're up against now. There's been a lot of pressure to purchase the bus, but I'm concerned about purchasing a bus that is not part of a clearly defined system at this point. We can do a bid for the bus, we have the bid specifications, but until we have a location, the buses, once it arrives, will just sit in a garage or a parking lot. We did ask the committee to give us an example of the type of vehicle that they were interested in, and what the one they provided, gave a couple of pictures here, one from the borough of Leonia, the one below it is the one from the county. I think they've done enough research and we've done enough research that we're comfortable with this style and model of bus. It is the most frequently used for this type of service. I'm sure you see them all over.
There's no state contract for these?
There may be a state contract, but there's a state contract for a vehicle. It's not a state contract for, and that was one of the, because we had hoped that we could do that, but it's not a state contract for a senior service bus. So after looking at it further, we found that many of our surrounding communities did ultimately go out for bid. Because it's special. And the most recent was Cresskill, and they were kind enough to give us a complete set. So we actually have bid specifications, and we've already been able to update them and revise them for our use. So we have the bid specifications, and I gave you just an idea of what it would entail.
How long does it take to get a bus from the time we
Without the bid?
say buy the bus? If you started tomorrow morning, how long before the bus shows up here with the keys?
About 3 months, including the bidding
3
process.
months. And how long will it take to hire the driver for the bus and the scheduling clerk?
The hiring process can take from 30 to 45 days as a unit.
Okay.
And but next we're going to talk about who's paying for it, because that's really the key to all of this. We know what to do, we know how to do it,
Just to mention.
but what we need to deal with is the finances.
Yeah. So to talk about that, first of all, maybe you want to go first, and I'll
Okay, all right, so in answer to your question, yes, we need a driver. The driver would have to be full-time.
No, Jill, that's why I didn't want to. We look at the Harrington Park. They have 3 drivers, all of them part-time. You don't want somebody that has to go on vacation or is sick for 2 weeks. So basically, 3 part-time drivers. It's the more you spread that responsibility, the better off you are. And,
Those are 2 different issues, though. That's a staffing pattern.
but no, we don't want a full-time. We want 3 part-time people so they can, the coordinator can adjust the schedule. We don't want a commitment from that. And those people can be absolutely hired to workforce development. They have the money, so we can go forward.
No,
and I don't want you to shake your
I'm
hand.
sorry,
We
but
don't
no,
want
it doesn't, and I'll get into that. So let's be very clear. I'm not trying to lock you into X amount of dollars, but as I said, there is a cost to all of this.
no question.
Whether you get grants for it, whether you pay for it all at once, whether you get companies to contribute, you still have to know. What I'm trying to make sure you understand is the total cost, regardless of where the resources come from. Also, with regard to what you said, sure, you can have one full-time driver or you can have 3 part-time drivers, but there's still a cost.
Absolutely,
Okay.
and that's what we need to discuss.
All right. So let's go to the last section, the cost estimate. Behind this is a budget, and we'll get to that, but first, just in terms of what we have been looking at. Workforce, I've looked at it. I have their entire package, and I don't really think that their program does meet our needs. If we were to participate, we'd have to have a host agreement. And this agreement is very clear. It's for short-term work training to prepare participants for unsubsidized employment off the program. We're not training bus drivers. We need bus
But
drivers.
that's
And
the
we
way
need,
it was set.
excuse me, and we need people with experience. This agreement is very, very clear about what they anticipate. It is a job training program. It is not long-term. It's only an average of 20 hours per week. It's facility oriented, not field or travel oriented. And out of their 11-page application, 9 pages are about the supervisor, the person who will be doing.
Which will be
The
the
training.
coordinator.
No, it's not a coordinator, it's a trainer.
Can I have a general
There's a
question?
big difference there.
I'm getting very confused very quickly because I don't understand. Are we having a budget conversation here?
We're having both. I just wanted to make sure, for instance, we have been talking about in advance about other funding sources that we could use in lieu of tax dollars. So, like I said, with regard to workforce, that was one of the options that has been
And
discussed.
workforce provides a driver, is that what that is?
Look at Harrington Park.
Trainee.
If they
No,
provide
that's
trainees.
not. Look
They
at
provide
Harrington Park.
trainees.
They have 3 drivers, all of them paid by the for the yeah,
All of them paid by whom?
workforce. All of them 3 drivers. So
Not workforce.
yeah,
Not paid by workforce.
Who were they paid by?
So can I ask Jewel? I have just
Community
clarification.
development.
community
Yeah.
development.
It's not, it's not workforce.
I have a question on that. So for 2017, these numbers here, in terms of the driver,
Are you already at the numbers?
well, yeah, because we're
It's
trying to get to the
not-
heart of what
Right,
we're
well,
talking about.
I know, but I just want you to know because it's important because we have been talking about other funding sources. And if you want to know the status, we talked about a New Jersey Transit grant.
Right,
That grant has been applied for, but they told us up front that those funds would not be available for 18 to 24 months. So everything that we're talking about doing right now, we're talking about fronting
right.
the money for it for at least 2 years.
So,
So
Jewel,
let's go to the budget.
Jewel, so in your budget, you have for 2017, $56,000 for the cost of a full-time driver and his benefits.
Correct.
Where is that?
What is your aversion to, for $56,000, the odds are we could get 3 part-timers.
Yeah.
Why do you, I'm just asking why you prefer the one full-time?
It's not necessarily a preference. What I was indicating was the fact that we do need someone more than 20 hours a week.
So,
The amount of time that we would need
Yeah, so-
somebody. So even if you break that down between 3 people, that's fine. But it doesn't necessarily change the overall
Right, so
cost.
we're not closing our eyes to 3 part-timers
no,
versus.
and a
Not at all.
coordinator. And a coordinator.
Well,
There
what's
is a
Scheduler.
coordinator, scheduler.
There has to be
The
a schedule.
scheduler is the one that basically coordinates all the
Well,
rights.
that's in there, Max.
And
That's in
it's
the
there.
budget.
It's in
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
It's in there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, basically, at the end of this discussion, what we need to have happen is we have to have a sense that this body is going to approve these numbers in 2017. Because without this approval, why would you order a bus?
And what we can do is basically say, this is gonna be the worst case. We can then go to the different program to see if we can mitigate those costs.
So do we have any
What program?
opportunity to
Yeah.
get community development money for this driver, just like Harrington Park? I mean,
They
we
got-
sit at these meetings all the time. We've never, are we eligible?
We're not eligible.
And
Why are we
Harrington
not?
Park is?
The only thing that believe me,
I
you
know,
know,
I
we
know.
have this discussion every year
I get
with
very
county.
frustrated.
We are only eligible for ADA.
what will be the difference between Harrington Park and us?
Economics.
Economics,
Is it-
There's some
Yeah.
sort of measuring stick that
right.
we're too high, economically.
Keep in mind,
Believe me, I ask this question all the time, Max. I see Horworth gets some things.
we
and
go through
Howard
this
is
Harrington
every year,
Park, but we don't qualify.
we don't qualify.
And I don't ask Jewel, I ask the people that won the program, I get the same answer.
All right, so I'm sure we
Well,
can get some of
Even if we as a body commit to these numbers, that
Yeah.
doesn't preclude us from turning over every stone, looking for something.
Exactly,
Of course,
exactly.
Absolutely.
And we'll commit to that.
Well, keep in mind, it's very easy to say we'll commit, but we have to find that money.
No, we'll
somewhere.
commit to looking
Oh,
for
yeah.
the money, absolutely.
We know that, it's gonna be a tough year.
Yeah.
Can a driver be shared service with another town? Just the driver?
Can
That
you
was a
speak
tough
up?
action,
Can
right?
you speak up? I can't hear you.
Yes, you can.
Shared service with another town.
Can we share a driver with another
We've
town?
been looking into that
When you
for
share it,
months
it's-
with the other boroughs. And you can only share surplus or excess
Right,
time,
right.
and there's no excess time. I mean, they only hire the people to the extent that they need
Right,
them.
right, right, right.
And
The only thing is that, for example,
one
Harrington
driver
Park
will
in
not be able
Howard,
to cover
they
both
share
communities.
the bus.
Two towns that add up don't add up to our size,
Exactly.
so they're much smaller.
Together probably, yes.
Right.
And also
Yeah.
two mayors that both were there over 20 years,
Yeah.
and knew the lay of the land pretty darn good.
And keep in mind that we basically solicited those types of services extensively through the Riverside Co-op. It's the same group of
So
communities.
do we
I've
understand
spoken
right,
to
the issue
My
right
fellow
now is
mayors.
in order to
Yes.
proceed, we need to have kind of okay, we understand and we will kind of commit to that because we cannot commit now for the 2017 budget. And we say, okay, we understand that. That's the issue now?
No, we're trying to decide, it's a yes or no, we're moving forward or not
Yeah,
moving forward.
but that's what the
And it's
issue is now.
$133,000 a year.
I
Yeah.
think we're all committed to moving
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
But it would be not doing our due diligence if it wasn't laid out for us, so we know what we're
Absolutely.
moving forward to.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want to know in January when we get our books and we see a number that's a little higher than we'd like, we won't be able to say, why didn't you tell us?
Yeah.
We're being told that either we have to cut this somewhere else or it's going to be a little higher than we like.
And we'll trim it wherever we can,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be significantly lower. It's
Unless
Pretty much
unless
gonna
we
be
find a
in
funding
excess of
source and we're not
$100,000.
going to stop looking.
right.
So then we're gonna go ahead, purchase the van.
Yeah.
This is our plan.
Well, I guess, are you looking for approval from the council? What's the,
That's the,
Yes,
Yes.
okay, yes,
because basically, where's Susan?
yes.
It's so easy to spend $89,000.
Yes.
Where is the scheduler in this?
Huh?
Where is the scheduler in this?
Scheduler, clerical
The
assistant,
It's there.
scheduler is-
part-time,
is-
20
is-
hours a week.
Yeah, and why can't we go for the workforce for that?
No, we can. The
You
way-
can?
the idea is we will approve,
If she's a person.
Gloria, we will approve the budget and then we'll look for a way
The
to
scheduler can
put
be,
a budget.
it doesn't require, I mean, I can
Okay.
understand the driver has to have experience and all of that, but the scheduler is like an admin job, and I've had experience with workforce people, and they've been very, very good where I used to
Yeah.
We're
work.
not gonna
with
pay-
them.
I actually said, in writing, that was probably more applicable for workforce.
Yes.
You said that earlier, too.
position.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that we can look at it, I mean, it may or may not happen, but it's
Right.
worth the shot.
Okay,
Right.
I think we're done with this one.
Without,
Okay.
then we can go to the to the bid for the bus.
Yes.
If it's possible, we'd like to review the bid before you set it out with the senior committee.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Gloria?
So folks,
You wanna try?
What's his next?
where the downtown parking is concerned, a nice simple topic. This is, I made copies for everybody, this is the report that I got from the students. I don't recommend that you look through it now, because I expect that we will put this on a future agenda, but I would
Yes.
like to make
I
a,
tried to read it in the
yeah,
email, but
well, that's right.
it needs a lot of study.
So, here are my thoughts on parking. I truly believe, and believe I've spent a lot of time in the parking lots over the last few months. This time of year, it's not a good time because the town is relatively empty.
Exactly.
but here are some thoughts. I think the mix that we have, commuter lots, employee lots, shoppers lots, regulated parking in the streets is a reasonably good one. You know, I went to Westwood the other day to stop, and I'm saying to myself, wow, what a successful downtown. And that was before I got out of the car and I had to put money in the meter. We don't have meters, and I don't suggest that we should have meters. Okay? For the most part, people can always find a parking space in Tenafly. They may have to walk a block, which is no less or more than I ever have to walk when I'm in Ridgewood or Westwood. I believe there's one of the keys to our parking situation is enforcement. If the rules are enforced, people are more likely to follow them.
That's
If
right.
the rules aren't enforced, commuters will park in lots they don't belong, employees will park
That's
on the
right.
street, shoppers will leave their cars there for more than the regulated time. One of the things I'd like to talk about, we're talking about our 2017 budget, is a parking enforcement official, part-time, no more than, my thought is 8 hours a week, 2 days a week, 4 hours a day, from 10 to 2, where they can go and check the parking lots at the beginning and the end, rotating the days. It's a part-time job that would work well. I mentioned
was
this to the
suggesting
Why
that
do
we
we need
absolutely-
another person? Don't we have enough people in the police department?
They're not enforcing it now, and I think this job would pay for itself.
That I
Yeah.
agree with that.
And the police chief has no problem with it. It's something just to think about as we
Let me
move
just-
forward.
I agree with that very much. My experience, about 4 weeks ago, it was July, early July, the time that we're still building the Grand Union or whatever, the Stop and Shop. I couldn't find a place in the parking lot at CVS. I parked at the other lot that they were in construction because I walked across the street. I got my prescription. It was 5:42. The bus from New York came in. 3 people got out of the bus, got into the CVS parking lot, took the cars, and drove away. It's really a question of enforcement.
I agree.
I mean, it is empirical, but it's so striking.
No, yes, Dan.
Is it like a special officer, like a Palisades Park, a Cliffside Park, or is it a parking?
Well, this would be somebody under the auspices of the police department.
Yes.
He would not be a policeman, but he would have to be trained. And,
In New York, just for clarification, in New York, they work under the auspices of Department of Finance, not to have a conflict with the, and that can be also because it's just a question, just so we
we can
understand.
have our attorney and our administrator give us a recommendation
Yes.
if we're so inclined to pursue this.
I know you're not in agreement, Shama. It's
No,
just
I
because
think there are enough people in the police department to do the job.
they
That's
should
my-
do the job.
That's it. That's my
They
feeling
just-
about it.
They don't do it.
Well,
They absolutely do.
keep in mind that there aren't as many people as we think. When you realize how many people there are on the road in a shift, and I'm not making excuses. Should more summonses be written? Absolutely. But I think somebody concentrating on this would make a difference, not only financially, but I think it would really help the parking situation in
$15
downtown.
an hour, one
But
ticket is gonna pay for it.
Keep in
What's up?
mind, one of the things I also noticed is we have the change in the character of our downtown. Retail is disappearing, service is increasing. You take a business like hot yoga, and I'm not picking on them, but this is what I've noticed. If they have a 9 o'clock class with 20 women in it, that's 20 women coming downtown and parking their cars, and more often, if there's a space on Washington Street, they take it. There are times now that I find it more difficult to park on Washington Street than I've ever found it before. And the one thing we don't want to do is choke off any of the remaining retail businesses. If Che Cheese's customers or the baker's customers or the kosher deli's customers or even Subway or any of these other stores, if people can't find a place to park, they're not going to come, and that it kills the business. So as a member of the planning board, we have to be a little bit more stringent about, we don't, our parking regulations have been loosened in an effort to attract businesses. You know, it's a catch-22. You have ridiculous restrictions and businesses can't come in here. If you have loose restrictions, then it becomes harder to find a parking space. But it's something that we really have to work on, a balancing act. You know, when we have a business like Keller Williams come in, they have realtors going in and out all day long. Now, they promised they weren't going to park on Washington Street, but they don't have their own parking lot. So that's another reason why we have to see what we can do about obtaining more space for parking in downtown. Other than that,
Did you want to schedule this?
yeah, but one last suggestion, and that is, I would like to encourage employees to use the employee lots more than they do. Our employee lots are rarely more than 50% filled. Now, so the question becomes, well, where are the employees parking if they're not parking in the employee lots? And there's an easy answer: they're parking where they shouldn't be parking. So right now we have a $25 fee for an employee permit. I'm told some businesses don't like to pay the $25. So I'm going to suggest, and I want you to think about this, and we'll talk about it again in September, a 3-month moratorium on fees for parking permits. So if an employer wants to come in and get a parking permit, say for the last 3 months of the year, we don't charge them the $25. We still want to maintain the limit of 8 permits per business. But how many businesses have got 8?
Less than 10%.
Okay, less than 10% of our businesses have 8. So that gives businesses that have part-time employees an opportunity to get their employees permits for no cost. And we run that for 3 months and see if it's an easy test. If the employee lots start to fill up with permitted cars, we know that it's working. And if it's not working, then we have to look for a different answer.
And we're not losing any revenue because we don't spend the money. It goes into an escrow, and if a business returns a permit, they get the $25 back.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's never happened
Which
before,
never-
but if they
Oh,
it
it
does happen.
Yeah, but
I can
let me-
assure you that,
let me just, we have 10% of business, they have more than 8.
No, have 8, the maximum.
Maximum, but they have more than 8 employees.
Yeah.
And what do? We have to create something for those. Those are the large businesses that we want to keep in Tenafly. So this arbitrary limit of 8, it's just basically hurting our best businesses. So we need to do something about that.
Well, it's not really arbitrary, and it's been expanded over time. For instance, when this was first put into effect, the limit was 4. So over the past decade or so, based on experience and based on need and based on, discussions.
We could do one of two things now. In an effort to fill employee lots, one suggestion is to eliminate the $25 fee. Another would be you keep the fee and raise it from 8 to 10.
Or
I think
whatever,
that-
how many they need. If they have 14 employees, let them have 14 permits.
That part
I
of
mean,
the story.
we're gonna tell them you can only have 8 employees. I mean,
Yeah, why,
Any number
why
we
is
put,
there any reason?
it's
What is the
arbitrary.
reasoning behind giving a limit of?
Well, I guess at one point, since there's a finite number of spaces in the employee lots,
Correct.
you don't want to give an infinite amount of permits out.
Yeah.
What happens if everybody that has a gym
No, but
membership
how many?
ends up at the
Right.
at the treadmill at the same time?
a
That
gym
that
membership
is that was the original basis, and it's well documented. I mean,
No,
It
I'm
does
we
Yeah.
know. I'm just saying. We when you ask, you just don't typically just open.
No,
the
I mean,
floodgates.
don't we know how many spots there are in the employee lots? If there are
We
50
do.
spots,
We-
It's
then
in
you
here.
just
It's
give
in here.
50 permits, and that's
shift
it.
work. It's shift work. You give 150 permits.
If
So
you-
the
yeah.
point, the point I would say, you go to the business and find out how many. I have 14 employees. You get 14 basic permits, but you don't get the next one. If one leaves, it's your business to recover that.
Shama was asking how many spaces we have.
Yeah.
We
Which is
have
something-
132
I'll make a copy of this.
that are just the municipal complex and the senior center. We have 207 commuter and employee lots.
So they are mixed.
Correct. And at the present time, we have
What's in Calpar?
260
Yeah.
active permits utilized by 85 businesses.
And half
And
of
the
them don't
average,
use
the
it.
average number of permits per business is only 3. So when you say, 8 is not enough,
For some businesses, 8 is not enough. For some businesses, plenty. So if once you create an arbitrary number, you penalize
but
the
it's,
ones that.
but you're saying arbitrary, it's not an arbitrary
It is
number.
arbitrary.
It is not arbitrary.
Right.
But I think the point is that less than 10% of the businesses are using 8 permits.
Yeah.
Correct.
They're not using them anyway.
Anyway.
No, those businesses that have really a lot of employees, they have a problem.
Nail salons.
Now they have a problem, and now they fire park all over. And why do you want to penalize the guys?
Oh, I
that,
don't want to penalize anyone.
Exactly.
Do you know for a fact, because we know who the businesses are, do you know for a fact that those permits, that those nail salons have even one permit?
I have no idea. I know the owner does not want to buy them.
Well, see,
Uh,
that's a very different issue.
No, and
Then it goes
separate-
back to the enforcement.
Well, that goes
But
back
it's
to
not
making
enforcement.
them free.
Let's see.
The question is, the ones who have
Enforcement
8
stuff.
permits, do they have more than 8 employees?
Uh,
Or they just got
Well,
8 permits?
Thank you.
I say we do it in
I've
stages.
I've made a suggestion that I think is a good first step. If it doesn't work,
Yeah, do
we
it.
can go to,
Yeah.
we can increase the
I
expectation.
give it a
agree
try.
with you. Let's
Give
give
it
it
a
a
shot.
shot.
Give it a try.
Good idea, let's give it a shot.
Do you track the car to the permits?
It's registered.
There's a
Any
license.
reason for that? Why do you care?
Registered.
A lot of these people don't like to be the idea of government tracking them. I think that's the other reason.
Well, when you say
Right.
track, no, we
Right.
don't track them, they just have to
Yes.
basically verify that they have employees. Otherwise, we don't even know.
Well, when somebody comes in and gets an employee permit, do we put a specific license plate on that permit?
Not a permit, not a license plate, a driver's license.
We should put a business name on it
Oh,
rather than the
there's a
driver's
business
license.
name as well.
Then why the driver's license?
I know.
Because supposing I'm the part-time person and
Well,
I'm
it doesn't really
leaving.
matter because the
Yeah.
permit hangs in a car, there's no
No, but
person,
still,
no
I mean,
driver
if
in there to
if-
check a license.
If I get the permit, then I'll say, oh no, I can't give it to you, Max, when you start your job hours because it's got my license number on it. So I wouldn't put any license number either. I would just
Just extra.
give
I'm
it
not
to
exactly
No, no,
sure.
well, when
They
you
don't
said,
do
no,
that.
no,
well, so
we
we'll
don't,
start with the.
excuse me, we don't track people. The only thing that we ask for is you basically, you do have to document that you at least have employees, that you're a Tenafly based business.
Yeah.
So it's strictly for documentation purposes, otherwise,
I can't
don't
imagine
know who the
anybody
people
spending
are.
money to buy permits if they don't need them.
And they don't want to
Anne Marie,
give their
put this
driver's
back on
license.
for
Exactly.
the first meeting in September, we'll decide if we wanna, how we wanna handle, if we wanna make that change for the last
But
3
I
months of
like
the
your
year.
idea of the 3
I think
months,
it's a
Bill.
good
Why
idea.
don't we do that? Just-
That's what we're gonna
what
do.
does
We
everybody
can
else
approve
think?
that now.
We all
Why don't we
agree.
approve it now and just
Okay.
test it?
Yeah, so that's.
And then you get
Since I
your
get it's approved.
and you
Great
get your
idea.
enforcement guy in to
Maybe
make
just
sure it
point out with the
happens.
enforcement guy, with the way that they've worked out to do it now, that where they're moving the cars, no one is breaking the laws. The police have been very good on Railroad and Washington.
Anyway, that's
Not CVS parking lot, but on Railroad and Washington, they have been down there multiple times.
In the streets.
On the streets.
In the
yes.
street, yeah, but the parking lot like
It's
a
the
Joe
law.
like me
That,
wants
that,
to
that,
come.
Okay,
that
ma'am,
we
we're
didn't,
in
the chamber
agreement
did
with
not
you.
ask for that.
Yeah,
Let's
well,
But
do
the
the
enforcement
I'm
has
asking
been
for
going
it.
on, and enforcement
You know,
person
sooner
is
or
all
later,
about
the
that.
employers are gonna wise up.
Yeah.
And if they allow their employees a multitude of employees to park on the street, they're killing their own businesses.
Correct.
and
They're also
you
parking
should
in
get
front of
they should
residences.
get tickets.
Yeah, well, it's
That's
hard
the
if they
answer.
move
Yeah,
their,
but they're parking in
they're-
front of
they're-
residents 2
they're
blocks
beating the
away.
system.
All right.
Next is
Anyway.
a request from a family at 295 Tenafly Road
Yeah.
to get a permit for one of those overnight spaces that we created for this purpose. Does anybody have a problem with that?
We created them for that purpose.
So there is a question over here, and we need to understand if this is a strategy or not. We created those overnight spaces for condominiums, co-ops, whatever they are, rentals, that are in a real bind about, because they live in a company where they have just a very limited amount of.
They have one
Spaces.
space for each apartment.
Now here comes a house.
This is not a
Here's the-
house.
This
It's
is
an
apartment.
apartment.
Oh, then I'm wrong. Sorry, I was
It's
wrong.
9J.
I thought it was a
It's
house.
apartment J.
Well, he just
Okay.
referred
Okay.
to it as our home.
The next,
Oh, okay, that's home.
the next item, the next one, E, is a memorandum from the planning board. If you recall, the planning board had asked for our approval of a designation for 19 Peter Linus Court. The recommendation from the HPC on this designation was based on the fact that there was going to be a subdivision. The subdivision was denied, so the planning board is sending it back to the HPC and basically saying, now that it's not going to be subdivided, do you still want to designate it? So once the HPC makes up their mind and sends it to, then we have to.
Yeah.
But right
come up
now
with
we
a
have no
recommend-
rule.
There's
We're not
nothing
doing
to
anything
direct.
now.
That's fine. It's
Okay,
information.
that's the best one.
Last
It's
but
easy
not
override.
least,
That's right.
Easy.
this is about the bypass in front of Smith School. Okay, and a settlement in a lawsuit. The traffic pattern has been changed slightly. The change is actually one that the police chief has been in favor of for quite some time. For those of you that are familiar, there's a little bypass from Downey Drive to where Oak Street is.
Mhm.
That's been closed off at pickup time at 3 o'clock, and the traffic has been forced to move through the driveway at Smith School and out the parking lot
Yeah.
of Smith School. Now
So-
it's going to be allowed to make that turn on, if they care to. They can still go the same way. A sidewalk has been constructed. There'll be a longer and a safer pickup line where the kids can walk on the sidewalk and get into the cars. But in order to do this, we need to amend the traffic ordinance. So this is
If the
kind of a,
police chief thinks that's the way to go,
Yes.
Mayor, I'm not
Yeah,
arguing.
it's them themselves who closed the street and they couldn't
He
figure out
says so,
why.
so let's go for it.
okay.
Sounds
Well,
good.
a number of years ago, this body approved the closing of the street. So now we're opening it again.
Open the
You
street,
live long
Mayor.
enough.
Different
things get reversed.
composition, different composition of body members.
Actually, we didn't approve the closing of the street.
We did? Oh,
No.
thanks a lot. Then why do we have to approve opening it? All right, next is the administrator's report.
Oh,
We
sure.
approved the one way.
Well, I'm sorry, to make sure that you understand it, we're actually approving the one-way aspect of the bypass only during this pickup hours.
Okay.
Can I ask something? Why is just during this pickup hours, they made this rule?
Because the rest of the time, it's not necessary.
It's like
The rest of the time, it's an empty street.
Same
It's
thing.
like-
like
so
Bob
Hamilton
Drive
Place by
South is
Stillman
one way
School is
during
the same
school
way.
hours.
Why don't we get it all the time?
Obviously, you've never been there at pickup time.
Because there were
There's
so
no
many
reason.
streets.
There's no
Oh,
reason.
think of
it would be
Max, think
inconvenient to
Magnolia Avenue, where that block is
Yeah.
one way during the school hours.
Same thing with Hamilton.
Do we all
Yeah.
live by school?
Okay, Julie?
DPW
yours is
building, if you've had an opportunity to ride by recently, you can see that there are actually walls going up, okay? So we're at a very critical point in the development. Gave you a summary of the work that you can expect to take place over the next couple of weeks. You can see the framing physically. In front of the building, you've probably also seen that they're putting in a new sewer connection.
I was very upset that they actually opened up the street before we paved it. Normally, we wait till it's paved, and then we open it up. I mean, Grover Street is scheduled to, if
be
the
resurfaced,
Transportation Trust Fund ever opens up again, we have a grant to repave Grove Street.
It's okay, they're gonna open it up after that again.
And this building will have an elevator shaft. So that brings us to the action that we have on the agenda for tonight, which is a submission from Janine McDonald of the Works for the building. They're at the point now where they will be putting in the cabling as of early September. And in your package, we have a resolution and a very detailed breakdown of the cost and the materials to be purchased. We also included Janine's justification for recommending E+ as the provider in the actual resolution.
Can we
So-
discuss that now or you wanna discuss it as a part of the resolution?
You can discuss it now.
There are two things over there. First of all, there are E+ and there is the general contractor, which the name is that recommended E+. What is personal? I'm gonna go.
That's our contractor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
for $85,000, and they recommended, there were two, one was for $85,000, and they recommended E-Plus for, I get the resolution.
It's two parts. It's combined. It's a total of 127,000, but they broke it down into two parts.
Okay, now, the way I read the resolution, and I spend a lot of time,
Mm-hmm.
is, okay, we have a reason that we don't have to go bid out because they are part of a Hunterdon County co-op agreement, so that allows us to go around the state regulation.
No. We don't go around
No.
state
You really gotta be
regulations.
careful how you phrase
No,
things.
but it's exactly how it is. Basically, is because they are part of the Hunterdon County co-op.
That's
then-
exactly why we're not
That-
going around
Around the
state
state
regulations.
regulations.
No, that
We're
allows
allowed
us
Are you
not.
reading this map?
Just let me finish. That allows us not to bid it out
Correct.
because we have a loophole that we can go, and the state allows us to go. Now, I believe that the best thing for any bid, especially something like $125,000, is to have it bid out and see which one is absolutely the best cost for, I'm sure there are co-ops in Hunterdon County, there are co-ops in Bergen County, the co-ops in Passaic County. Each one of them have electrical work, and we say, oh, we want this guy. I don't think that that's the best benefit for the Tenafly, not to find out if they are really the least expensive provider, and we should go and bid out. The rule says that everything over $45,000, if we have a purchasing agent, and we now have one, basically has to be that. And now we have a way to go around that rule, but I don't think that that's the best way to do.
Why did we
You keep-
decide to do that?
Well, first off, if you read the resolution, the justification is very,
I
very
read very
clear
carefully.
and it's very, very detailed. One of the reasons, and please stop saying go around, because this is all done through the state. What the state understands is that many times, some of their rules can wind up being obstacles, and they can actually wind up holding up projects that are under construction. As I said, this cabling has to go in the early September.
That's not a good reason.
Well, excuse me.
I mean, it's
but
just
that
an
is-
excuse not to be,
it's
we have to
not
go
an-
tomorrow.
It's not,
Vinny, can you do the job? Okay.
it's not an excuse, okay? And you don't bid things overnight. That's one of the reasons that a bidding process takes a lot longer. And that's one of the reasons that the state has approved several cooperatives and has methods by which we can go through. We did this previously for the police department. I think Janine spells out very, very clearly the advantages of taking this approach and the advantages of using E+.
Okay, I'm gonna
One
read
of
it
the
to you.
things, one of the things that we're trying to ensure is that there is compatibility between all of our borough systems. So for instance, we're using the same vendor that, and the same platform for the equipment, for the camera and security equipment that's in the police department, so that we can ensure that they're compatible and that the systems support each other and work together. But as I said, I think she laid out her justification. This is what we contracted with her for. That's why we have an expert on board, not to
an
make our
expert.
lives more difficult, but to make the process smoother and easier.
Jules, this is so
I
simple.
hear what Max's concerns are. The concern, I think, to put it very simply, is this the lowest possible price we could pay for the work that we
Yeah.
need to be done, including the quality of the work?
Exactly.
What is, basically, is there some manner that, I'm not sure you could say anything that's going to assure him, but what level of assurance do we as a body have that this is the best that we could do? I understand all the reasons why they're doing that. Is this basically a judgment call, or
No, it's not a judgment call.
combined with the track record of the people involved?
It's the track record, it's the research, some of the things that you don't have, because you don't get into usually the weeds, but we have an entire budget based on every estimate, based on every item that has to be purchased. Janine has done her homework and her background, and wherever she can, she gets the best cost, the best price for every single item that's in that budget. And it's extensive. Keep in mind, you're talking about all of the cabling, all of the security equipment, all of the furniture, all of the equipment. This is why we hired her.
Yeah, but this is the,
and
she cannot go around the good practice.
she didn't, you're using, this is not fair, Max. You're not
Okay.
using the proper verbiage here. You're making it sound like rules were broken or bent, and they're not. They're following a process that's been approved by the state. Now, you might not like the process, and you have a right to say it, but say I don't like it. But don't say that rules were bent or ignored or broken, because
The
that's not
rules
the
were
case.
basically made to, there's two things. As a best business practice, we should adopt the rules that basically say every process, every bid that we have over a certain amount of money, we have to make sure that it's basically the best price for the
Well, one of
town.
the ways we do that is hiring a clerk of the works
It-
that, basically turns around. First of all, this whole process is budgeted by our engineer, okay? And then the clerk of the works goes to work, and believe me, if she comes in with something that's above the budget, it's looked at.
Even if it's below the budget, you might get somebody else billing even more below the budget. So that's not the issue. Issue is, was it a public process that ensures that?
It's not an issue. There's only one person at the table that believes this is an issue.
Absolutely, and I'm going to
You've stated-
very
you've
clearly state it.
You've
Is there
stated
a
it-
process that ensures that the people in Tenafly that there was a public process that basically made sure that every single expense, especially at such a high value, $125, was looked through multiple channels and something to document
I
that?
think we got 7 people that are elected at this table to look for, to look after the people of Tenafly and how the tax dollars are spent. I think 6 of us, I hope 6 of us, are comfortable with this. I understand you're not comfortable with it, and I respect that, but I think we have to move on.
And in answer to that question, I would have to say yes, because we're using a public process as defined by the state, and we're doing the purchasing through a public entity.
And this number is consistent with the budget for the project?
Yes. Below.
It's below.
Okay, next. Edmonds,
Um,
the New Jersey Transit. Did you want to add anything about the transportation grant?
yes, you know what happened, I went off that page.
What's that?
New Jersey Transit. In July, we discussed the fact that there was an application available under the New Jersey Transit 5310 program. Just wanted to confirm for you that we did submit an application for operating expenses. One of the things that I think it's important to note, I did include a copy of the emails that I received from New Jersey Transit verifying that they had received our application and it was on time. But please note that they indicated our application has been received and it will now go to a state advisory committee. And that committee is the group that will decide whether or not our application is actually passed on to the Federal Transit
I have a question, Julie.
Association.
This is not affected by the transit funds being shut down?
No.
That's just for actual building projects?
Correct. This is a different source of funds. In fact,
Jewel,
when the
What was the
issue,
name of the committee? Sorry.
the committee,
Besides, after 18 months, we hope the transit fund will be back in business.
it's New Jersey Transit staff. And they have a state advisory committee, which includes the MPO,
Of an NPO.
the Metropolitan Planning Organization. Ours is based in Newark, New Jersey. Okay, and what they do, as it indicates, that they will review and score each application. And then they decide which applications get passed on to the feds for approval. And then they indicated that the entire process takes 18 months to 2 years. Okay,
Next is Edmunds.
Edmunds. Edmunds, as you know, we're doing a software conversion from First Bite to Edmunds and Associates. And Susan is overseeing that process, but I laid out for you just a broad overview of where we are in that process. Since basically over the summer, we've been doing the project planning and definition. The definition portion is pretty much done, and that has resulted in Edmunds producing a very, very detailed, literally almost week by week schedule of the implementation process. It's been divided into phases. Phase 1 is real estate and personal property taxes. That's the portion that will be starting in September, and that will run through November. In phase 2, we'll be doing the finance systems, the requisitions, the escrow accounts. That will overlap for a portion of the time, but that will run through February, because that has to also be completed and put into place after the budget is developed for 2017. And in phase 3, we will begin training, and that training will run from roughly October to January. So we have a process that we believe will come to a conclusion in February 2017, and Susan is here. So if she'd like to make any comments about how comfortable you are with the process and how it's going.
I'm very comfortable working with the Edmunds personnel. They've been very forthcoming. They've pulled all the data. They've done this many times. Basically, we have a couple of go-live dates. Tax go-live date will be November 14th, right after our date for collection of taxes, but the grace period is done. We'll be on board for that. And then our go-live date for the rest of the modules, finance, will be January 1.
Susan, is it our ledger that's always been manual?
Yes,
Is that going to change?
that is going to change.
And
It's going to be an integrated software
so
system.
that's a big positive, right?
Definitely.
And would you say that this system is user friendly? I'm not familiar with it. That's
It
what I'm
is
saying.
user friendly. In fact, when I went to some courses at Rutgers, they say they don't support any one system, but yet we open their books, it's all Edmunds detail.
And Susan, if this is going to become a efficient system,
Mm-hmm.
would that help a lot with lighten up the jobs on every people also? If you have to have an estimate, how much of a time would that save to your group?
You know what, right now we've had some staffing changes, we just hired someone full-time.
Yeah.
I don't know what our staffing requirements are going to be in the future, but I would imagine that
It's not
I would
facetious,
imagine that we would become much more efficient and we would be streamlining some of the duties.
Good news.
The last item, I'll ask you to read that. That was actually generated by Lizette. She asked that be passed on to you.
The sidebar?
The sidebar. Okay, so I can't really answer your questions about that, but you do have the information that she provided. If you have any questions, I can take them back to the clerk.
How is she doing?
She's doing.
That's the most important.
It says that worst case scenario, we would have to refund 90% of the renewal fee. The renewal fee is what, an annual fee?
Yes.
So that it's not like that would create any sort of burden on us.
No.
And that. I
And the
mean,
other updates are pretty straightforward. We received our $100,000 check for Davis Johnson Park. We have talked about using those funds to, they will go in we have an existing trust account, so they've been deposited into the trust account. And we previously discussed using this as an opportunity to get the services of a master gardener to refurbish the rose garden. Magnolia Avenue parking, there is an attachment from the police department. Basically, the chief responded to the request that the council made to have someone there for a full day on a Sunday. So they felt like the previous time frame was too short. This report covers a full day, and the chief did not basically change, I guess, his original decision or recommendation regarding the area, that it's they're not finding much in the way of illegal parking. They do obviously agree that there is volume, but the chief also noted that they have been in contact with the church and that they can already tell that more people are utilizing the off-street parking that the church has available. Senior Center Administrative Support, we do have a temporary part-time clerical assistant in place to assist Becky, who is the acting director of the center now. That individual started on July 25th. Her name is there for you. She works 25 hours per week, and her assignment is anticipated to conclude by October 21st.
Okay, thank you.
There's a list of reports that are available for you.
Next, we'll go to correspondence. The first one is from Norman Dorff, owner of Honda of Tenafly. Now, he had been parking cars over at what used to be Stancato's. It's a vacant restaurant. He was given some summonses for that. He's asking for permission from the mayor and council to park cars there. And I called Norman to get a better sense of what he's asking for, because I thought we would just have questions. How many cars? How long? And what he told me was that the issue is sporadic. For example, this month, he doesn't need it because he doesn't have an overflow of inventory. When he does, he'd like to be able to park there. I asked, he asked for 6 months. I said, well, that seemed like an awful, this is going to be an ongoing thing with them, because unless he acquires more parking places, he's always going to have a need for this. I said, how many cars? He said, well, about 50 cars. I said, would you be willing to limit it to the legal amount of parking spaces that are in the parking lot? Because what was happening there was the same thing that was happening over at BMW. They were jamming cars on top of cars. It really looked terrible. And I told him, I just want to get a sense of what he'd be willing to do. It's really can the council agree to this? This is almost like a zoning thing, isn't it?
Right, zoning issues, pertain to either the planning board or board of justice.
Yeah, I have a
Nature.
question.
Would the council be able to give him permission to do this if it's a zoning thing?
I think temporary use you can do though.
I have a question. You saying
It's not
he's
a permanent. It's not a permanent authorization for doing anything. And so our ordinances, I believe, allow us to give a temporary permission to use property.
okay? He's parking. You said in the Stancato lot.
He was until he started getting summonses for it.
So now he's asking for permission to go back and park there.
Correct.
Is that a private property?
Yes.
How can we then give permission?
Well, he has an
Because it's
agreement,
Oh, he has an
agreement of
agreement with
the
them.
property.
All right.
This is the question in my mind. There was another car, in Englewood, somebody that had a car, and he was parking over there, and we made a decision that we don't want to.
Englewood?
Yeah, somebody had like a parking, some sort of in Englewood, and he was parking the cars here as an overflow.
Oh, you're talking about
decision.
an Englewood business parking cars in Tenafly.
That's right. And we made a decision that we don't want to, and we specifically gave instruction to give the tickets and to have the guy remove the cars. And they're asking, well, can I do something? And we said, no, we don't want to get this lots or any other lot in New Jersey to be like a parking lot for all the other cars. And we made a decision, and we told that to that fellow. And now we have another one that says, I want to do the same thing, but well, my friends, I'm from Tenafly, so give me a break.
That's not exactly what he said.
Well, but it's the same thing. I mean, we basically chased one out.
Do you remember chasing that?
Yes, we chased one out from
Englewood.
But
A
I think
guy from
I
Englewood.
think
But
it
you
had
might
a
be
lot
nice
to
to
do
the
with
people
the
in
fact that it
Tenafly,
was-
man.
So
it wasn't
no,
a
that's
temporary
I want to
thing.
bring it up
Right.
over here.
Well, I guess the difference between what you're talking about is that was an Englewood business. This is a Tenafly.
That's exactly what I'm trying to
So,
say.
They
We
jammed
chased.
them in there.
Huh?
They jammed them in there.
Well, but we can tell him he can use. We could
Limited
tell
to
him.
the existing parking spaces.
Yeah.
The legal amounts.
That's a compromise.
That's
That's
reasonable.
I'm saying just we have to understand that we chase somebody out from Englewood. We're going to give somebody in Tenafly And if we do that, we have to put some limits on it.
Doesn't really matter though.
No,
You
it
can,
doesn't matter. We can make
based
it.
upon the type of
That's-
business, length of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
I'm,
that's something that you can get
not
temporary
worried
temporary permission. And we do that, if you think about that, every time someone comes, they wanna put something in the front yard,
Yeah,
or to do
I
something
have no
that's
problem.
temporary.
I don't
Those are
have a
things-
problem to
right.
give.
Well,
He's a
If
business.
you're so inclined, I would suggest we give them 3 months, and we tell them no more than the legal amount
Legal
of
amount.
spaces. We'll
Right.
find out from the site plan how many spaces there are, so that he can't jam them in. So
What-
when
so
you drive
I'm
by, it just looks like a
still
busy
confused.
restaurant.
If he has a
Use car
deal with that private
Right.
owner to
Yeah.
park, say X number of
Yeah.
cars, where do we factor?
Because
Because
it's
it's not,
against
it's not a
zoning.
permitted use.
It's not a
No,
permitted
it's
use.
Ah,
He's
not
gonna
zoning,
park
no
overnight,
storage.
leave it overnight. The restaurant has a different rules. He wants to have it, make it a parking lot.
Right, it's vehicle storage.
Basically,
Oh,
not
it
custom.
might not have, the people might not have said anything. The cars were so jammed in there, it really looked terrible.
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
Okay,
Now I
so we'll
get
give
it.
them 3 months.
Thanks.
and the actual number of cars that are.
Next one is a letter from a concerned resident, not a resident of Tenafly, mind you, one of Bergenfield, concerned about the seniors center closing, which is of course not going to happen. Maybe you could just tell her fears are unfounded. Next is a letter of commendation. It's nice to get some nice feedback from a contractor mentioning that the service in the building department is good, and they especially mentioned Lindsay, which is nice to see. And I would tell you from my personal experience, although there are people that are not happy, especially those that don't get the permits when they want them.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we get a lot of favorable comments about how the department is operating. This is a decision for the council. Do you want to do a resolution on climate change?
I am for it.
The resolution?
Climate change?
I want to
Yes.
Are you
For climate
in
change.
favor of climate change, or you want a
I'm
resolution?
afraid the resolution that basically says, watch out, this is coming.
But
I think it commits to too many
it
details.
commits the details, we have no idea what
We
we're talking
have no
about.
idea what, we
Right.
need to read this and discuss this. How can we commit to
very
reducing
We can't.
greenhouse
I'm
gas
not-
emissions and
I think the first question is, do we want to do a resolution supporting the concept of, climate change is real? Well, I don't say we have to do this verbatim.
Now, basically,
No, but
is
they're
there
asking you to commit to a
No,
lot
no,
of things.
they
I don't wanna
said
do
this
that.
is an example.
We don't
This
have
is
to
an
follow, we don't have to follow that example.
Yeah.
And
It's
if you guys
basically-
want to
So
do
what are
climate
we-
change, then we can
what-
talk about immigration.
What are we saying? We support the concept that there is climate change and
The
we should
issue
be-
is, if you, there is nobody doing anything at the state level,
You can't even talk
specifically
about
because of,
banning pet puppy mills.
Yeah, I think we
Oh,
should
I
move
know.
on
to the
Now you
next
wanna-
topic.
Now you want to talk about,
All right,
And they want
so
something
let's
to be
look
done.
let's see what the climate
Let's
change
focus on-
resolution
I think
says.
this is more of a federal issue.
Yeah, let's
Yes,
focus
it
on what
really
we
is.
think is all there.
Although it's been pretty hot
But
lately.
we can say we support. the
that's
thing,
one
but
way
I
I've been,
don't-
because they
I
wanna
don't
build
think
it
we
up
get
to the
Next
state
is
level.
Vantage Health we get this every year, although it's a little late. We support Vantage Health every year in our budget, and they are thanking us, and they're a great organization
They
too.
are indeed.
Next is a pro forma block party request form. Anybody have any issues with that?
We didn't get
Have a
invited.
question?
It'd be nice
How
to
many of
be
you know
invited to
what-
one
you know,
of these.
How many of you know where Mission Way is?
Yes.
I know where it is, Mayor.
Okay.
Unless we get invited.
Anybody have any other questions? I know, Max, you already brought one up on one of the resolutions.
Yeah, I just wanna,
What letter?
there was the other one, let me just, the van. I just had a question,
Which
The-
van? Where are you?
292, the R16 292. Is this something that we had it in the budget? Because usually when it's a budget, you have a resolution saying,
Letter.
Susan saying, I swear that I have the money.
It's if you click right on it,
Where do I click?
I can't-
on the
Click
consent.
on
Consent
292.
agenda?
292.
There you go.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
yes.
292.
16292.
Usually,
Authorized purchase of
yeah,
2017
usually
Ford Transit.
there is an additional resolution saying, yes, we have the money in the budget.
What, a certification form?
Which one is it?
S.
292.
This is for the truck
Item
for the
S.
DPW.
Yeah, so the question I have, just
Oh, I
wanted to
know,
know.
that's there. For the DPW?
Is
Yeah.
that in the budget? Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that was the question. Because usually you have next to it, it's a resolution where it says, Isuzu Grata.
Yes, certified funds.
Yeah, this one didn't have, that's why I asked.
The
Okay.
Ford Transit we
It's
talked
there
about.
in capital budget.
Yeah.
Okay, under old business, we have a couple of items.
Oh,
The first is a request for bus relocation.
I saw that. Yeah, somebody
This
wanted
was,
a
this,
stop change.
we've talked about this before. This is a family that lives on the corner of Mellon Lane and River Edge Road. If you head up River Edge Road, past Jefferson, it's the first left. It goes into Lylewood, that area there. They're on the corner there, and their driveway opens into Mellon Lane, but it's probably within 40 or 50 feet of the corner, the intersection, where there's a bus stop. And they're asking to move the bus stop. They're claiming vision issues. Frankly, I look at it. They're not. If the driveway opened up into River Edge Road, I could understand it. It's opening up into Mellon Lane.
Side lane, how come?
I'm not sure. I understand the
So
request.
this was sent to the New Jersey Transportation, they
And
came
they
back,
said,
We-
they don't do
they
it.
said, it's up to us.
We would have to recommend to them.
Yeah, so it's up to us to
I'm
recommend.
not exactly. It's not clear in my mind why this would be necessary.
Yeah.
We
So-
get all
Somebody should go take a look.
Yeah,
Or
well,
the
maybe
police
we should
take a look.
basically have
Take a look.
someone. I think that most
the
important would be the
police to
police
tell us.
department to
Let
take
the
a look
police take
and
the
see
look.
if there is any,
They'll know.
exactly,
Joel, would you ask the police to investigate?
see if there is any
Good idea.
obstruction of their
Good idea.
property entrance.
And the next one is
The puppy
not
mills.
exactly the climate.
Oh, the puppy mills.
Yeah, puppy mills. A lot of towns have done this, and it's a very simple thing. If I'm a dog person, so
Yeah,
Me too.
we don't have a pet store, so sometimes I wonder. But just putting it out there that we as a town, because we represent the town, do not support puppy
I think
mills.
that's fine.
So I did a lot of research on this one because I have a puppy too. It's
They're not from a mill, though. Are they?
yeah, well, it's not originally it was from the mill. So basically, after you do the research, you find out something that's very interesting. The puppy mills are very much regulated, and the only people that do not get regulated is the breeders. There is zero. Okay, well, we can agree to disagree, whatever. There is zero regulation on the breeders of what rules they should follow.
What is a puppy mill? I thought a puppy mill is a breeder.
No, a puppy mill is somebody that has like 100 puppies, and the breeder is somebody that has 5 to 10 puppies, and they do that every day, like that's their living. And what happened over the last few years, the puppy mills are taking the business away from the breeders, and because their economy of scale makes that cost of the breeding so much less. And I tried to do the research. And now basically the breeders are coming back and saying, wait a second, there is a human problem with the puppy mills because if there are regulations, the state regulations are very lax, very loose, and the abuses occur all the time. And which is probably true like anything else in life, you have all the abuse they have. But at the same time, it's just an economic issue. A puppy now, instead of costing $3,000 from a breeder, costs $800 from a puppy mill that goes to a store.
But
And a good store
keep in
can do that.
mind, you can get a rescue dog for $0.
Yeah.
Exactly, which was okay.
I think I don't.
What
after
is
listening
that?
to you, I think
Feedback.
I feel stronger about doing this resolution than I did before. Puppy mills to me mean that A, puppies are being mistreated, and B,
No, that doesn't mean it.
well, yes, it does, because the end result is consumers are getting dogs that aren't healthy, and that's a result of them
We
being.
can talk about, and that's a very valid argument, unhealthy dogs to be sold. That's a very, and that should be
Well,
from,
if you read this, the
but that should be from
Hackensack-
whoever.
Can we shut this off?
So is someone
It's
gonna,
bothering
is someone
me.
gonna give us a draft
James,
resolution
is
to
that
review?
a little loud?
I don't think so.
Peter?
What?
Is someone gonna provide us a draft resolution?
Well, there's a
for next
draft,
week?
there's a one from Hackensack.
Is there gonna be a public portion at all?
Yes, there is.
Okay, good.
We're almost there.
Okay,
Might have
I
been
can
there
answer all
sooner.
these questions.
So I think I can't argue about any of the things, the whereases in the City of Hackensack ordinance that's supplied to us. I mean, how can you support documented abuses or inhumane conditions?
I agree with you.
Or-
Let's
That's absolutely
let's-
right.
All right, so let's do that.
Whatever the reasoning behind your
Just change
research,
Hackensack to
Max, I
Tenafly.
like the idea of shutting down a puppy mill. Because I got a little doggy too.
Okay, unless somebody has an objection, let's close the work session.
So moved.
That was good. The Open Public Meetings Act.
So,
The notice requirements have been satisfied. Meeting dates are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. Copies of this notice have been sent to the record, Suburbanite and Northern Valley Press, and have been posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center. Okay, do we have a flag?
Yes, we do.
Salute to the flag. Oh, Joanna, we could all salute you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Marzalato? Councilman Bach?
Here.
Councilman Hader?
Here.
Councilman Park?
Here.
Councilman Stefano?
Here.
Councilman
Here.
Zinn? Mayor Russell?
Here. Revisions to the agenda?
We have a couple. We're adding to new business resolution 16-297, and that's approving the settlement recommendation in the PBA matter. And also to close session, there's a litigation matter, just an update on the Pirelli versus Board of Tenafly matter.
Okey dokey, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the following sets of minutes: July 11th work session, regular meeting, and closed session. Motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Public comments. Okay, I know the audience has been waiting a long time for this. I apologize for the, we'll start over here. I'll go around once and, young lady, would you like to start? Just state your name and your street name for the
Stay
record.
right here?
That's fine.
Okay. My name is Robike, R-O-B-I-K-E, last name is Knoll, N-O-L-L. I am from Westwood. I live in Westwood. I was here with Mr. Obenauer, who I believe is a business owner in town. Quite a few of you are familiar with him. He had an urgent matter he had to take care of. Perfect timing. I have a copy for you guys to see of Wyckoff's ordinance that they just passed. So.
This is for ordinance for.
Oh, I'm sorry, to go back, it's talking about the commercial puppy breeding, puppy and kitten breeding. And I'm very fond of Tenafly. I owned a travel agency here for many years, and it's funny listening to you talking about the parking and stuff. Brought some memories back.
What business was this gentleman here who said he came with you?
The Valero station?
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Obermeier.
That's Mr. Obenauer, that's Robbie. And when I was active with the closing down of the Emerson Just Pups location, he was very, I don't know if you've seen, he puts out the signs against the animal abuse. He's very, very pro-animal activism and animal rights. And he was wonderful when we were in Emerson. He gave us a place to park and let us use his restroom and all that kind of stuff. So he's very, and he was hoping to speak to you guys as well tonight. Basically, I've been called an animal activist. I prefer to be known as just a volunteer. I do fostering, I do rescue. I supplied you with my business card as well, because a lot of people, or calling card, I should say, it's not a business, it's volunteer. A lot of people have questions after I leave these town meetings, because on top of running my travel agency and then doing rescue and volunteer work, I spend my evenings going around and speaking to nice folks like you. And some towns I walk in, like Wyckoff, and they say, yay, you're here, great, and they adopt the ordinance, and I go home and everybody's happy. And then there's other towns that say, well, we don't have a pet store here, we don't need you, we don't need the ordinance. A lot of people are relying on Senator Lesniak's S63, which is a statewide ban on any kind of commercial sale of puppies and kittens. Basically what it is yes, puppy mill is kind of like calling a police officer a cop. It's just a nickname or a different name for a facility that commercially breeds animals. The law, the United States Department of Agricultural Law, the USDA law, is that a breeder mother her cage that she lives in must have 6 inches above her head when she stands up and must have 6 inches on either side. And this animal lives in this cage her whole entire life, is bred twice a year. Every time she goes into heat, they breed her. And this is legal according to our USDA. So it's basically taking you and locking you in your bathroom and having you have a baby twice a year, and that's it. You never come out of that little tiny bathroom. And unfortunately, because those are the USDA guidelines that are acceptable, a lot of states have started to look at it, and we're looking at it on a community and a town level to show the support, because this just went, S63 just went through the Senate. It flew through, they were very surprised. It still has to go through the House, of course, and then Governor Christie, he's kind of busy these days, he has to sign it too. So we don't want to wait for that. That could take a year, and if each individual town could show the support against this type of cruelty. You see what Emerson went through. That was an embarrassment for the town. It's still costing them money. They didn't have anything in place to protect themselves, and that's what this ordinance is all about. A resolution's lovely. I live in Westwood. They passed a resolution a week after I sent it to them, but resolutions don't do anything. We need an ordinance in place in all the towns. And I will just briefly, in closing, I'll tell you about New Milford, where Governor listen to that one.
She just got promoted.
Mayor Sabrizzi said to me, you know, this is lovely, she passed an ordinance. She says, we don't really need she passed a resolution. She said, we don't need an ordinance because our town ordinance already says no puppy stores, no live pet stores in our town. And about a month and a half later, she called me and said, would you come and speak to the mayor and council and explain this ordinance, explain what's going on in all these other towns like Wickliffe Lake, Glen Rock, East Rutherford, Maywood, Hackensack, Little Ferry, Emerson, Upper Saddle River, and Hillsdale just agreed last week to start looking at this. All the other ones I just mentioned have already passed it. So I went to speak to them, and they basically said the same thing. We don't need it because, and then one of the council people said, but is this like a safety net? So if someone comes to our town and says, I want to open a puppy store, and we say, you know, we have an ordinance that says no puppy stores in town, and they want to fight that, now we have a safety net. We have an ordinance that also says if you want to open a puppy store, it's rescue or animal care facilities, no more huge commercial breeders known as puppy mills.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Lori, your turn.
It's my turn. I just want to thank you for moving on. Thank you for your report, Jewel. I do want to mention two things. I've been reading in the paper about different towns doing, I guess, ordinances about rentals. And rentals have to be at least six months because of this Airbnb where people are starting to, you know, have people come and go and come and go.
Tourists.
Tourists, yeah. And it's, it may be nice in one way, but in another way, in your quiet community, you really don't know who's coming and going. So I think maybe it's something that the council should be looking at in the future.
Well, Cresskill just started. Most of you have probably read in the newspaper that Cresskill is passing an ordinance, but that I know the mayor is concerned about tourists coming in, but the real big problem was one home in particular was being must have been like a large McMansion leased out on a weekend basis for large parties that were, you know, really bad for the neighborhood. So that solved that problem as well. But we understand what you're saying. But you know, unless it's hard to do something like that unless a problem arises.
Yeah, but you know, it would be nice to take care of it before a problem does arise. You know, I believe in proactivism in that way. The other thing that I've thought about too as I travel around is the signage in Tenafly. I know that there was a problem in a couple of the towns where owners were of a different, you know, they put signs up in different languages, and the English was like not there, or so small that you didn't know that this was a community of, you know, in America. And I think we have to look at that our signs should be in English, and if they want to put their, you know, their own, whether it's Korean or Japanese or whatever else,
speak? No.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything.
Name and address, even though when,
Uh,
I always know when somebody says they weren't gonna speak, it was you.
of course. Johanna Gambrell. And, Ravine Road. I was in on the first bid discussions. That's how I got involved in the council. And that was in 2008, I think, or about there. And I sat for an entire year and listened to what the bid was about before I said anything. And they specifically asked the planning board, because Gus Allen was the one who engineered it, to remove the requirement for a business to show how many parking spaces they needed for the business. They thought that would attract businesses to the town. But, as we know, what it did was upset the apple cart as far as parking, because businesses didn't have to show that there was parking for the kind of business they have. And maybe that should be reviewed and considered when you go through this parking discussion. Also, when the student who created that report, he was in 8th grade, it was an assignment from his teacher to look at the town and create a new parking plan. And I think for a plan to be considered by the council, it should have more views than the view of an 8th grade student.
First of all, this was an advanced placement 12th grade class, Leeds class, which, and they had come before us a year earlier to give us a report, a sense of what they thought could be done with the downtown. And in all fairness, their report was terrific. And they were looking for something else to do. And I said, well, why don't you give us an analysis? I mean, the elected officials at this table will put the proper weight behind it. I don't think anybody's suggesting, because a high school student suggests doing something, that we're going to have a knee-jerk reaction and do it. But they're citizens just like you and everybody else here in this room. And if you were to give us a plan, parking plan, we'd read it also.
But I don't think it should be the only thing.
No, it's not the only, believe me, it's not the only thing.
Yeah, and I will prepare something for the September meeting, but if you want more customers in the town, and I've said this over and over again, enforce the ordinance that's already on the books about no skateboards, no scooters, no bicycles on the sidewalk. And yet every single day when I'm down there, there are people on their skateboard, on their scooters. And I've gotten to the point where I don't try to move. I just stand where I am and let them decide which side of me they're going to go on. I mean, are we going to wait for some kind of accident before we enforce this ordinance? And there are other towns, and I've taken pictures, that's why I'll prepare something, in the other towns where they have green and white signs, and the ordinance is clearly written, no skateboards, no scooters, whatever they have in that ordinance. I'll provide it for the council. And it should be posted at the ends of Washington Street, so people from out of town, people in town who don't know there's such an ordinance, can read it. And the last thing is, being a math science person, and realizing that there's an allergic reaction to math or science in our society, I think that it would be a good idea for this town to stand behind the issue of the climate change is real. The more we don't know about it, or people don't, or know nothing about it, the more it's going to be a problem in this country. And it is a problem if people find out about it. I'll be glad to prepare something, but it's real.
Thank you.
And I think this council should get real about it.
Thank you.
Mark Feldman, 133 Lowell Drive. Like the rest of you, I recently received my annual tax bill, and although there were no surprises with regard to the municipal portion, or indeed the school portion, there was a big surprise with regard to the county portion of our taxes. And I think county taxes in general have not been paid adequate attention by this governing body representing the citizens of Tenafly, which is why I want to give you a few statistics and urge a few actions on you in relation to this problem. I did calculations between 2009 and 2016, and over that period of time, roughly 8 tax periods, the municipal portion of our taxes has gone up 26.7%. The school portion has gone up 23.5%, but the county portion has gone up 42.3%. All the while we hear the freeholders saying how much they've been trying to save money and not go over their statutory limitations. So what is the explanation for why there's this outsized difference? And part of it is the equalization formula that the county uses to allocate the total amount of county taxes among the 70 municipalities. And I would actually question whether Tenafly is getting treated fairly under this equalization formula. There's no doubt that our town has added ratables, perhaps at a faster rate than other towns do, and that's what feeds into the formula and therefore ends up with the number that we get stuck with. However, and I'm probably sure that the state of New Jersey is the one who prescribes this formula, but I don't think that just because that's a fact that there's nothing we can do about it. And one of the first things I think we should do is verify whether they've done the calculation correctly. And if they haven't, or if we think they're off by a few $100,000 one way or the other, we should do what an ordinary taxpayer does and appeal. And I'm sure there's a mechanism for that. So I'm glad the CFO is here, because I think she would be the one who would do the verification if you asked her to, and to form some kind of basis for an appeal of this number. Second, I would recommend that you look at underlying causes of why the county number keeps going up so much from year to year. And part of this, in my opinion, is the Bergen County Utilities Authority, which is independent of the freeholders, but its members are appointed by the freeholders. And it seems to me that their increases every year, which seem to come in at 10% or more every year, is something that's out of control. And if they got 70 resolutions from mayors and councils around Bergen County, they might get the message that we don't like this and that they really need to do something about it. And I'm sure you've been to mayors' meetings where other people have complained about it, but there doesn't seem to be any follow-through or action. Another area of big increase is the Bergen County Improvement Authority, which issues hundreds of millions of dollars of bonds for things related to the Meadowlands and Bergen Community College and county parks. And I'm not saying that all these things are wrong or illegitimate, but they need to be looked into more carefully. And since you are the representatives of the taxpayers of Tenafly, it seems to me at some point you need to look at some of these items and contact the relevant people, whether they be freeholders or authorities. I can't go and appeal to the BCUA over my water charges, but it seems to me that if Tenafly feels that we're not getting the proper treatment, the town could go and file something with them. And I realized we had a discussion a few years ago about what was causing the large amount of water that we were being charged for. And there were some solutions proposed at the time by our DPW head. For example, he said we could do more monitoring of the way sump pumps are used in Tenafly and people who are illegally putting water into the sewage system as opposed to the other system. So this all adds up in terms of what we collectively get charged by Bergen County. So I think it might be worthwhile to go back to some of those suggestions and see if we can have a fairer treatment for people who keep seeing their tax bills going up despite your good effort to keep the annual increase down. So finally, given that we do, regardless of the formula, pay about 10 or $11 million a year as a community into Bergen County, I also think we should spend more time figuring out ways to get some of that money back to benefit the taxpayers of Tenafly. And that involves a whole bunch of things you could do in terms of grantsmanship, lobbying, I don't know what specifically, but that's a lot of money, and we need to get some more benefit from it. And in Bergen, we can't use the excuse that we're so affluent and everybody else is poor, therefore we shouldn't get it. Half the towns in Bergen County are just as affluent as Tenafly, but somehow or other, we don't, in my opinion, get our fair share of resources. So I'm just throwing that out for your thought and future.
It so happens
action.
that our mayor's breakfast in September, one of the speakers is Mr. Tedesco. I will prepare a statement for him. You have anything to say?
Thank you for the parking permits. We're very happy that you're experimenting with this. And in defense of the police department, they are very active about enforcing parking regulations on Railroad, Washington, on the streets downtown. And they do occasionally enforce the parking regulations in the employee and commuter lots also,
I'm glad
that
to
we
hear that.
know of.
We're
They are known to be
We're
good.
glad to hear that. Thank you. All right, we'll close the public comment section, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilman Bosch,
Yes, with the exception of R16 295, where I vote no.
Councilman Hader,
Yes.
Councilman Park,
Yes.
Councilman Stepanowitz,
Yes.
Councilman Zinn.
Yes.
Okay. Anne Marie, please read the ordinance 16-13.
The following ordinance published herewithin was first read by title only on July 11, 2016, and posted on the bulletin board of the lobby of the municipal center. Ordinance number 16-13, an ordinance amending chapter 2, sections 2-47.19 and 2-47.23 of revised general ordinances of the Borough of Tenafly, establishing the eligibility and allowable duties for members of the Junior Firefighters Auxiliary.
Thank you. Motion, please. Public comment on this particular ordinance? Mark, you want to?
Sure. I make a motion to pass ordinance 16-13 on this second and final reading, and it is hereby adopted, and notice of same shall be published according to law.
A second, please.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilman Bosch,
Yes.
Councilman Hader,
Yes.
Councilman Park,
Yes.
Councilman Stepanowitz,
Yes.
Councilman Zinn.
Yes.
Alrighty. Committee reports. Paul, you have anything?
The Welcome Committee met this afternoon, and they have their gift bags prepared for the new resident event, which is the 8th of September in the McCandless Room. There is still time if any businesses find out about this, if they'd like to donate to the raffle that will be held, preferably by September 1st. They can contact the Welcome Committee.
Okay. Max, do you have anything?
I was not, but Sham attended the meeting on my behalf.
I will report on that.
Thank you.
Shama?
Yes, I have two reports. Board of Adjustment, I was finally able to attend the meeting. There was an application from 16 Marcotte Lane, which had been previously denied. That's the flag lot next to the Heller property. but they came back with a substantially changed application, which the board agreed to first hear it and then approved it. So that was the one main application that was presented that day. That's my Board of Adjustment report. I attended the Senior Services Committee in place of Max, and a lot of the issues were already discussed, such as the bus, etc. But one thing, Mayor, I brought to your attention, there's an annual senior citizens picnic in Van Saun, and the chairman of the committee, Gloria Lane, had suggested that you might be able to talk to Clinton Inn to obtain a van to take seniors to the picnic, and you had very kindly agreed to do so. The picnic is on September 14th.
You can't get that van?
Yeah.
Community transport can usually schedule in advance.
Community transport?
Bergen County Community Transport.
Max, you want to take over from that?
Yes.
I'll leave it.
Then Max and you can talk about
Why
it.
don't you do that first, all right?
Do that first before we ask.
Okay, perfect, and it's for Wednesday, September 4th.
Yeah, and to pick them up by 9 and drop them back by 2.
Alright,
I wrote it the other way around.
no worry,
Okay, so, next.
Dan will understand that.
Max, Dan, Gloria just said she's going to, go ahead.
I'm going to community transportation tomorrow to meet with Tom Murphy.
Okay.
Perfect.
So I will,
Perfect.
I'll bring it up with him then.
Excellent.
Steal a driver from him.
And let me know one way or the other, because if not,
Part-time.
then I'll inquire locally, but I'd rather, if the county can provide it, great.
There was also a question about if the generators at the senior center will run the AC, and I'm told they will. And also to use the senior center as a cooling center in case we have a heat wave, and how would you let people know? And I thought maybe a police robocall, if it comes to that, if there's, I don't know.
I'm not sure we're ever gonna get a heat wave worse than the one we've had this past week.
That's what,
Yeah.
they were talking for this week.
I think that, what do
I
you
don't
think,
know.
Jewel? I think the only problem is staffing, but
Yes.
if it's just during the day.
During the day,
Just
that's
during
where
the day, maybe, if there is such an emergency. I mean, we just need to have some kind of an emergency.
Well, I think we need to review it with the senior board,
Yeah,
and have a policy.
But also, well, maybe what we could do is put this in the newsletter, that we have several facilities. For example, the library is air conditioned.
Yeah.
If people want to cool off, obviously they can't go roller skating in the library, but it's a nice place to come in and relax, and they
But
can
it's
read.
closed on Sunday during the summer.
It is closed on Sunday,
Well,
as
the
is the
senior
senior
center is
center at
closed
this
on
point.
weekends, so it's even worse.
Well, I mean, for whatever hours they're open, the option is there. And there was one more thing that I made I'm sorry, my notes are so, I can hardly read my own handwriting.
We'll come back to you if you want.
Oh yeah, and then they are working on a survey to find out, to define what service, first, the seniors in town, what services they need, kind of getting together an inventory of the resources also. So once the survey is complete, they'll know what services are really needed to be provided. And they've started the process of getting that. They're working with, Steve Savis was there, and he's going to help
Mark,
organize
you did a
this.
survey at one time, didn't you?
We did.
Yes, but that was a small one. We want something more elaborate to
Okay,
lead
but I mean,
into
you-
the senior center.
You have it's a starting point. I mean, you had
But we want to do a
question.
more professional
Yeah, the question
job of
was,
it.
which age group do you start with? Because the difference in the numbers becomes much more, and then the cost will naturally go up accordingly.
Okay,
But
and
they have started the process, so that's the first step is
Now,
there.
when is our next newsletter going out?
October.
All right, then that might be a good place to put some information about this survey into the newsletter. Thank you, Shama. Dan, you have anything?
The green team would like to schedule a ribbon, like a soft opening of the garden. Everything's set up, it's ready to go. Just a scheduling problem, which we can go through the clerk's office.
Great. Mark?
The Chamber has organized a coffee week in Tenafly from September 23rd through October 2nd, and you'll be able to buy cards at the rec department for $10 each, and then go around to different establishments in town to get a cup of coffee, and it will raise about $5,000 for the local Little League and sports teams and cheerleaders. And I think that covers it all, right?
Read the names of the businesses that done
You want me to read the names of the businesses? Sure, I'd be happy to. Simply Vietnamese, Miller's Bakery, La Promenade, Mandu Cafe, Shea Cheese, Canara, Frovana, and I think that's all of them.
Simply
Europa
Cafe.
Cafe and Miller's Bakery, I got that
You
one.
can go into,
Tenafly hot bagels.
you
So
can
with
go
the $10
into,
you can go to anybody and drink a cup of
$10,
coffee?
you take your little,
You go to seven.
your little card and you get a cup of coffee.
A free cup of coffee, or do I pay
Yeah,
for that
no,
cup?
$10 cup is-
You pay the $10 for
But
the card.
You can go into Simply Vietnamese and just
And
get
it's
a
a
cup of
fundraiser.
coffee?
Simply Vietnamese will not give, doesn't
You
have.
pay $10 to the rec department. The rec department keeps the money. You take the card, you give the little tab to Simply Vietnamese, they will give you a cup of coffee.
Really?
Yeah,
You pay.
great deal.
Drive, man.
So, Mark, what happened to your dancing lessons?
It's like 10 cups of coffee for $10. You can't
No,
beat
it's
it.
not that many. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, wait, on any given 1, 2, 3,
Okay.
4,
What about the,
7 cups of
The
coffee
dancing
for
club.
$10.
Tell us
plus
about the
tea from
dancing
Mr.
club.
Ross,
That's
okay?
more-
did you go
Anything
dancing
else,
in the
Mark?
streets,
No, that's
Mark?
enough for tonight.
Oh, you did in the streets. You didn't. He didn't
Yeah,
do
he
that.
didn't do no
People like
dancing.
People like the dancing in the park.
Okay, I just wanted to report on 2 meetings that I've had. Dan and I met briefly with Peter Punzi at the Nature Center to discuss what's going on with Pfister's Pond. Right now, the county may be back in the picture because they have, correct me if I'm wrong, they've signed a contract to dredge all of their parks.
So the county, trying to fix their ponds, has gone out to bid and contracted a hydro raking company, the temporary fix.
Handwriting, yes.
So if we wanted to take that option, we can just do a simple shared services agreement with them. We wouldn't have to go out to bid. And I set up a meeting with Peter and the Parks Department for the next, I don't remember the date, that's later.
So then, is that for hydro raking?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, at the same time, I met with Peter, and I also brought the mayor of Alpine because they have issues with the country club that's on the other side of, Pfister's Pond is within maybe 50 or 100 yards of the border with Alpine. On the other side of the Alpine border is the country club, and they have a lot of runoff from the country club, which includes fertilizer. There's a major construction job going on there where they're piling up a lot of debris on the area closest to the pond. So hopefully, whatever issues they have will be resolved at that meeting. If not, the next meeting will include both the mayor of Alpine and myself to emphasize our interest in working to keep the pond in good shape. We want to maintain relationships with the country club because should we ever do anything with that pond, such as hydro or raking, access to the pond would be through the street on the country club property, and they've been amiable to allowing us to use that. The other meeting I wanted to mention, and Councilman Zenna was there, was with the swim club. Most of you at some point in time have been to the swim club. There's a lot of things that the swim club needs. They're going through changes now that they're the only swim club. And they are looking to change their relationship with the borough in some form or another. One of the possibilities is maybe a new lease. Another possibility is that they're interested in getting the borough more involved in the maintenance of the property. I explained to them that there's lots of things that can be done. The relationship between a swim club and the municipality it rests in varies from town to town. There are some towns where the municipality owns and operates the swim club. Basically, they're a private entity that exists on our property. That doesn't have to remain that way. I suggested to them that they go back and think about what they'd like to do and put it together in a detailed explanation that they could send to us for our consideration. I said if they're going to look for any sort of a change in the relationship, it would make sense for them to get it to us before the end of the year, because that's when our budget process starts. We talked about a number of things. Ideally, a major investment should be made in that club to bring it up to snuff. They understand that. We also asked them to give us a sense of how many Tenafly residents are members of the club versus how many non-residents. There's also things that will go into the equation, and I'm not suggesting that there are going to be any changes made at all, but Mark, do you want to add anything?
No, they talked about, they believe, just anecdotally, that about 75% of the members are Tenafly residents, and 25 come from other places, obviously. And they have a particular wish list, and just to reiterate what the mayor said, our response was, we'll come up with your list, attach dollars to it, and we have no idea where it's gonna go.
Dollars is important.
But we told them that it has to be real dollars, and we have to know prior to the budget season, which starts October 1st. Is the date we told them, and then we see where we go from there.
Also at that meeting was Bob Culvert, who's the DPW director, who could also, in fact, tomorrow, I'm bringing a representative of PSE&G there because there is a light fixture that they thought we could help them with. It actually belongs to PSE&G. So hopefully the rep will be able to improve that situation with no cost to us or to the swim club.
Now, Mark, you can know how many rumors are going to start with the town center and you just started.
Well,
I didn't start any of it. They invited us on
Actually, speaking of committee reports, Mark, do you have anything you want to talk about the?
No, there's no update at this time.
Okay. Are you planning on making a presentation, or
Yeah, in
that's
September though.
Still
Yeah.
not scheduled.
It's not scheduled at this point.
Okay.
We're gonna need people from
Anybody have any old business before we go to the resolution that was added to new business? All right, Anne Marie, you want to read that resolution?
Which one is that?
16,297.
The new one.
Oh, that's the paper.
Well, we all have a copy of it. You just want to read the title of it?
Here,
16 to 97.
I thought we all had a copy of
we
it.
do, we do.
16 to 97.
It doesn't have a title.
There's no title.
It does, it says.
Well, I mean,
Well, okay, it's a resolution.
Sloppy workmanship.
Resolution R16-297.
It's a resolution approving.
All right, let our attorney describe what it is.
This is a resolution, I don't always put titles on resolutions. It's 16,297. This is the resolution we
Everybody got a
discussed earlier. It's the resolution approving the June 22nd, 2016 recommendation by the arbitrator who acted as a mediator in the grievance arbitration between the borough and the PBA. And if you'll recall, there was a recommendation on settlement. He acted as a mediator, and he came out with a 6-paragraph recommendation. And this is the resolution whereby you would be approving that that settlement proposal, subject to the PBA, of course, formally accepting it. So you'd be authorizing the mayor and the municipal clerk to sign off on that settlement, provided that the PBA gives its formal approval of it.
So we need to wait for them to approve it.
That's correct.
We're
But no,
doing this.
you'd be, right now, the governing body, the council would be authorizing you, conditioned upon the PBA formally approving it.
Correct.
And signing off on it for you and the borough clerk to sign off for the borough.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
Don't we discuss the?
Yeah, well, first we'll make a motion and a second, and then we'll discuss it.
so moved.
A second? Discussion? Max, you want to say anything?
I think that the majority of the council is ready to approve it. I am opposed to that, and I'm gonna list the issues that I have with the resolution. It's not specifically the resolution, it's specifically the agreement that was put together by the James Mastriani, which is the arbitrator. There are a few things that are basically troubling for myself. One of them is that over the 2 years, the one entity police department basically get an increase of 9.3%. And that 9.3% has to be looked in the conjunction with what the borough can pretty much raise in taxes. We have a cap of 2%, that we can raise taxes every year, and we try not to do that every year. And there is also, if you look at the amount of money that the borough will have to put towards the salaries of the police department over the next 5 years, we're gonna have to take $1 million from the common funds and put towards the only one special interest group, which basically will put a burden on all the other activities that we have. That's one thing. The second part is that over the last few years, the police department has shown a lot of disrespect for the town of Tenafly. We know that we have a series of traffic stops and violations, and the police department has refused to give any type of violations for the people that are stopped. Basically, the town of Tenafly has become a violation-free type of town, and that's it's very much in the detriment, and it's a disrespect for the people that live in Tenafly and for the town of Tenafly. So given the fact that we're gonna have to take $1 million out of our budget to spend and pay one specific special interest group, and the fact that there was a complete disrespect for the people in Tenafly, I'm opposed to this settlement.
Any further comment? Please call the roll.
Councilman Bosch?
No.
Councilman Hayter?
Yes.
Councilman Park?
Yes.
Councilman Stefanowitz?
Yes.
Councilman Zinner?
Yes.
Thank you. No mayor's remarks tonight. Unless anybody has anything else, I'd like you once again to read the closed session.
Resolved in compliance with NJSA 10:4-12, the mayor and council of the Borough of Tenafly go into closed executive session to discuss the following matters. The first two are attorney-client privilege matters. One is with respect to the zoning complaint concerning block 1401, lots 3 and 4. There's an update on that issue. And the second is on the Aaron Pirelli versus Borough of Tenafly litigation. That's just going to be an update on that. And the other matters are, we have a couple personnel matters. One is just an overview of activity in senior center and finance department. I guess the borough administrator will give that, and a family municipal leave act, right?
FMLA.
FMLA,
FMLA.
Right, FMLA update, right.
Motion to
that
go
was
into
business.
closed?
No, we have some more. And just an update on contract negotiations, collective bargaining matter. Minutes will be taken to the meeting, released to the public at the time the matter is
Motion.
resolved. After this closed executive session, the mayor and council will reconvene in the Richard D. Wilson Committee Room to adjourn the public meeting.
Motion closed.
So moved.
Second. All
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for coming tonight.
Oh, man.